In this lesson, I'm going to just go over how I take the thumbnail and add more detail to make it a full sketch before I go on to add shapes and colors and things like that. We have our thumbnail all blown up and everything, which we did before. And so I'm going to tap on the Layers menu. I'm going to rename this to Thumbnail and then press Enter. And then I'm going to create another layer above that, and I'm just going to rename it to Sketch. And then I like to just lower the opacity of the thumbnail layer quite a bit. So I'm going to tap on that to make sure that's my selected layer, and then tap with 2 fingers, just a really quick tap, and you see this slide to adjust in blue bar appear at the top of the screen. And then you can just slide anywhere on the screen to change the opacity. So towards the left we'll make it lower, towards the right we'll make it higher. The other way you can do this is if you just tap on this little N to the side of the layer, you'll get a whole list of layer blend mode options, but it also has this opacity slider at the top that's a little bit more, it's probably easier to remember where that is. And then I'm going to bring the layer opacity down to something like 25% maybe, and then you just tap anywhere to kind of finish that opacity change. And I'm going to probably make a couple of changes here. Because that was just a really quick sketch, like for instance, I noticed that I have the, I guess his left arm and his left leg are both out at the same time over here. And I mean, I'm no running expert, but I don't think that's how people actually run. So I'm probably going to end up swapping the arms around, and I think I can even keep them in pretty much the same place. If I just move, let's see, this gets just a little bit tricky. But basically I'm going to kind of extend that curve. And I might even do like a quick gesture here and then do another layer to finish up the sketch, depending on how this goes. Because you can use any brush with any of these things, a lot of the time I want to be using the same brush to erase as I am to draw. So a quick way to, let's say I'm on soft pastel or something with the eraser and I'm drawing with a pencil, so I draw a line and then I click erase and it's just totally a different eraser. You can just quickly tap and hold on that eraser icon and it will automatically load it to the same brush that you're using for painting. And same thing goes for any of these other ones. Like if I have soft pastel and I want to use that as a drawing, same thing, you just tap and hold. And that's a really quick way to just match what you're doing with the other one. So I want that HB pencil. It looks like I have that selected now. And if you're using an Apple pencil, you can just tilt to get kind of a bigger brush on these pencils specifically. So I kind of want the arms in the same place that I had them, but basically I'm going to be twisting the body is the idea here. So I'm just going to make sure that this arm that I want on his right side is on the right side by moving the shoulder up here and then move the jacket forward a little bit. So that just feels a little better with how he's running. And I might go change this so it doesn't like run right into his knee, but basically just to get these on the right side of the body is the main idea right now. And then just playing with this collar, and so I'm doing a pretty rough version of this sketch to start with, I guess. And I'm just sort of coming in and kind of formalizing some of the lines I did earlier. Just sort of have that arm kind of come back here, sort of get the shoulder in place. Especially for these lines where I have like kind of some motion going on, I want to make sure that I get it in one stroke, because if I'm trying to go in there and just sort of trace over really carefully, you just don't get the same feeling. So a lot of the time I might end up doing that several times to make sure I get the sort of fluid motion that I want there. But in this section I'm trying to be really precise about where my lines are, so when I'm actually going in and doing color, I don't have to think too hard about the drawing itself. It's more about just the colors and how they overlay with each other better. And then I'll turn off the thumbnail quite a bit to just sort of see how the sketch is working on its own. And sometimes I'll even work just for a second that way so I don't have the distracting thumbnail underneath. And it kind of gives me a clearer view of what I'm doing. And I'll probably toggle this back and forth several times as I'm working. So there's a couple of things I wanted to mention here as I'm going through this sketch. One of them is how to draw straight lines better and how to snap them to specific angles, and then just how to draw circles a little more cleanly. So I'm going to start with lines. I want to add a shadow underneath him here. You can see I kind of have just a little shadow I drew in really quick on the thumbnail. But to draw a straight line, you just draw a line and then hold at the end of it. And then as you move your pencil, you'll see you can move it around. And if you let it go, and then tap the Move tool up at the top left of the screen, again, that's the little mouse arrow looking button, it will give you a little node on either side of that line that you can then adjust where it is. So you can see I drew this just a little lower than his foot, and I want it up against his foot, so I'm going to drag that up. And then if you want to make sure that it is perfectly level with the canvas, while you're moving it, tap and hold another finger on the screen, and it will snap to, I think, 15-degree angles. So I can just make sure that it stays, like, regardless. I can move my pencil pretty far before it will jump to a different angle. I just want to drag it out to right around there, maybe. And then just tap on the brush to dismiss that. And then to draw circles, there's not a circle tool in Procreate right now, but I'm just going to create another layer and then tap and hold it to put it underneath this sketch layer. And I'm going to delete this in just a second. So this is just a temporary thing, so I'm not going to bother naming it. But if you tap on your brushes and then go down to the airbrushing option down here, this should be one of your default brush sets. And then I like to choose this hard brush down at the very bottom. And then I'm just going to choose a light color. We'll get into how you choose colors in here a little more later, but basically you choose a hue with this outside ring, and then you can kind of choose saturation and brightness on the inner ring, but I'm just going to do something light. It doesn't really matter what color it is. I'm going to make this brush as big as I can make it, and then just tap once really quickly where I want my circle to be. And because this brush is just a perfect circle and it's really big already, it's pretty easy to get a good circle that way. And then I'm going to, with magnetic selected down here at the bottom left again, so I've tapped my move icon, the mouse arrow, and then I've tapped magnetic. And then I'm just going to resize this to about where I wanted that circle in the sketch. And I think I actually did a pretty decent job of putting that in a spot that it's not conflicting with anything too badly. And then I just want to position it so it's about where I had that circle. And now I'm going to deselect that. And then I'm going to, again, tap with 2 fingers on that layer to just bring the opacity down. And then I'm going back to my sketch layer. And now I want to go back to my pencil brush, which I think I was using, I don't actually remember which of these I was using. Maybe, I think it was HB. And then I just want to select black in this color wheel. And then I'm just going to trace around the outside of the circle. So I actually prefer this to having a completely perfect circle personally, because I like to have just a little bit of the natural variation in the line that I get by drawing it. I'm still trying to match this as closely as I can to the circle, but freehanding it just gives you more of a hand-drawn look, which I personally like. If you did want to just keep a circle back there, you can definitely just use that brush and leave it there and then use that shape later, but I'd prefer to hand draw this and do it myself. Then you go and just delete that layer, turn off the thumbnail, and now I have an almost perfect circle behind it. So I'm just going to do those same things again for a couple other parts of the sketch, but that's the general idea. So I think this is in a pretty good place. I'm happy for now with where the sketch is. That doesn't mean it's 100% perfect. I'll probably still make a few other minor changes as I go through and do the shapes and the colors, but for now I think I've done pretty much all I can on the actual sketch itself, and I think we're good to go from here.